load funds have not performed any better than no load mutual funds have. So don't allow anyone to make it seem as though you're going to get what you pay for, because that's not the case with mutual funds. Yes?
Isn't there sometimes also when you do get the earnings from the stocks that sometimes the professionals take a cut out of that too?
The question is, sometimes when you get the earnings from the stocks, don't the professionals take a cut of that? Not usually with a typical mutual fund. Hedge funds, yes. In something like a hedge fund, they will probably take a cut of the earnings. But when in a mutual fund, they're going to take a percentage of your assets. So in a way, yes. I mean, they're going to take 1% of whatever you have invested in that fund for the year. So if you've made money, they're going to make more money. Yes?
So like return-wise, you just get this, like, the percentage you put into the fund, that's how the percentage you get back out of, like, the profit pretty much?
Right, so if you put $10,000 in and it makes 10%, you're going to get the $10,000 plus the 10% if you sell it at the end of the year. That's exactly right. But the amount that you earn is going to be reduced by whatever you're paying in fees and expenses. So really pay attention to that. Too many people come into my office, they have this whole portfolio, they have no idea how expensive it is. And when you start looking at the difference between paying 1% a year and 2% a year over 20 years over a significant amount of money, it turns into hundreds of thousands of dollars, literally. It's unbelievable. They have what are known as A shares. That's when you pay a front-end load, meaning you're going to pay 5% of how much you invest in the beginning. There are B shares, meaning when you sell the fund, if you sell it too soon, within a certain number of years, you're going to pay a back-end load. You're going to pay 5% of whatever is there when you get out of the fund. There's annual operating expenses that you're going to pay every year. But the fact of the matter is you can buy mutual funds with no load. So the only reason I would suggest you buy a load mutual fund is, as you had mentioned, if you're getting advice, if you're getting good advice from a good financial planner, and that's how they're getting compensated, absolutely, they need to get paid. But if someone just says, oh, just buy this mutual fund, you can do that on your own. You don't need to pay that 5% up front for that. Okay? So not only are you all going to pay yourself first, set up Roth IRAs, pay attention to how much you're making and how much is going out so you can make sure you pay yourself first. You're going to keep your fees and expenses low in all of your investments. That will make a tremendous difference. Okay? Okay. So that's what we're going to talk. That was it for savings and investments, and now we're going to talk about credit. Does anyone have any questions on savings or investment vehicles? You mentioned diversification. It's really important to be well diversified, meaning you don't want to have all your eggs in one basket. So when you do start investing in your 401k plan and your Roth IRA, you want to make sure that you invest in a lot of different types of assets, meaning some bonds, some stocks. And when you're looking at stocks, you want to think about investing in really big companies. But large companies behave differently from very small companies, so you want to have some money invested in small companies as well. You want to make sure you have some money invested in U.S. stocks as well as international stocks because they behave differently. You might want to have some money in real estate as well. So it's a matter of really looking and making sure that you've got a little bit of money in a lot of different places. Now, if you have a small amount, it's really hard to do this, right? How am I supposed to invest in all these different asset classes? I have $400. Well, there is actually one way to do it. I'll call on you in one sec. There's fairly new mutual funds called target retirement funds. What a target retirement fund is you pick the year. So you can buy a target retirement 2050, let's say. Okay? So I'm going to retire in 2050. And the manager manages that money in a way that they think is appropriate for someone who's going to retire in 2050. So they build a well-diversified portfolio for you. And for someone retiring in 2050, do you think it's going to be very conservative or very aggressive? Very aggressive. So you can take a ton of risk. You don't have to worry about big fluctuations in your portfolio. You take a lot of risk when you're young. You want to be very aggressive at this point in your life. Okay? This is money you're not going to need until 2050. Let's be aggressive and go for that 11% instead of the 5% rate of return. For people who are retiring, it's more important to be conservative. They need that money now. So that's one way to get a well-diversified portfolio. They invest in large-cap stocks, small-cap stocks, international, domestic, maybe some real estate, all in one mutual fund. When you're young and you've got a very long-term time horizon, you want to be really aggressive. If it's money you're not going to need and you can sleep at night, if your portfolio's fluctuating up and down, absolutely you want to be aggressive. But as you near retirement and you get older, you can't be as aggressive because you're going to have to start taking money out to pay for your mortgage, to pay food, to pay for your car, right? So you want to become a bit more conservative as you get older. But you also want to keep in mind, let's say you consider getting older 55 and you're going to retire at 60. When you retire at 60, you still have a really long-term time horizon, right? Because you're not talking about, I mean, if you have a life expectancy, let's say, of 90, you still have another 30 years ahead of you. So you don't want to be too conservative. What's the problem with being too conservative? Yes?
You will end up with not enough money.
You might end up, right, not earning enough money, not earning a high enough rate of return, and running out of money. So you want to kind of balance out how aggressive you are at various stages of your life. Okay. So, yes?
What if this money, though, money that you either need for college or once you get out of college, like you probably want a lot of money, you have a lot of student loans to pay off, or car loans, or mortgage, whatever.
Right.
What if you can't afford to be
Aggressive.
right now?
So the question is, what if this is money that you need sooner to pay for college, or you need it right when you get out of college to pay back student loans and car loans and everything else? Well, you tell me, what's the answer? What should that money be going into? Investments or savings? Savings, right. That's exactly right. You're not going to put money that you need in the short term into an aggressive portfolio. You're going to keep it in a, depending on how long-term the time horizon is, money market mutual funds if it's money you need in the next 6 months to a year, or maybe some bonds if it's a little bit longer than that.
What happens if you're getting to that point of retirement, or you're a parent and your kid's about to go to college, and you have less money than you necessarily need? Do you go aggressive or conservative?
Okay, so what happens if you're nearing retirement, your child's about to go to college, and you have less money than you need? Should you be conservative or should you be aggressive? Well, it depends on your personality. It depends on your risk tolerance. If you have less money than you need and you're 50, let's focus on retirement. I'm 55, I want to retire when I'm 60. I don't have enough money. So what do I do? Should I invest very aggressively or should I invest conservatively? Well, if you're willing to take the risk that if it doesn't work out the way I planned and I'm going to work another 5 years, then I would say go aggressive because hopefully it pans out for you, right? But if you've got to retire at age 60, maybe you're going to go a little bit more conservative. I mean, it's the kind of thing that you have to evaluate at the circumstances at the time. There's so many variables that go into it in terms of the person's life expectancy and, you know, how many kids they have and their risk tolerance level. Unfortunately, there's not really a cookie cutter answer to that question. Yes?
So it often just comes down to a gamble.
It's a gamble, absolutely. It comes down to a gamble. If you're willing to gamble and you want to, you know, be more aggressive, then be more aggressive. Yeah, and you know what? That's a good point. When you invest in the stock market, it is kind of like gambling. It really is. And you have to be aware of that and realize that you're taking a risk with the money. There are companies that go under and you lose your investment completely, and that's why it's so important to be well diversified so that you don't lose everything. And you know, a lot of people tend to get kind of loyal to the company they work for, and they may have a lot of company stock in the form of stock options or employee stock purchase plan, and they don't want to sell any of it. You know, well, my company's the best, I've been here for 20 years, and so they have 90% of their net worth in the company. Well, the problem with that is your job is reliant on this company, all your benefits, your 401k plan, if you have a deferred comp plan. If that company goes under, you lose everything, everything. So you really want to make sure that you, to the extent possible, diversify out of whatever company stock you own. Okay, we're going to talk about credit now, and this is really, really important. Because all of you, first of all, have any of you gotten credit card offers yet in the mail addressed to you? You have. Already, they're finding you already. They want to get you while you're young, while you want lots of things and you don't have the money to buy them, because credit card companies make a lot of money off of people who don't have money to buy things but buy them anyway. Okay? Does anyone know what kind of a typical interest rate is on a credit card?
There's usually 8% maybe.
8%?
But that's like 3%, 4%. I know my mom has some good.
3 or 4%? What do you guys